Hi, my name is Rachel and I am a writer for the Her Campus chapter at UVic. And in light of yesterday's events on campus, I wanted to hopefully shed some light on the situation. I feel a lot of people were very confused as to what exactly happened. So yesterday, after I found out about the stunt, I think they would prefer to have it called protest, but I'm going to call it a stunt, by Youth Protecting Youth, a club at UVic. I decided to break down a timeline of their time at UVic, because they've actually been a functioning club since 2008, and this isn't the first time that they've done something that has striked controversy. So all information that I'm getting here is directly from the website, the Youth Protecting Youth at UVic website, which I can link down below in case anyone wants to check it out. So they don't start posting on their website until 2010, but they actually give a fairly straightforward breakdown of their breakdown of controversy from 2008 to 2010. So, spring 2008, Youth Protecting Youth did a poster campaign. It was through the Martlet that YPY first found out that some people were offended by the posters. There was no mention of harassment, intimidation, violence, or hate speech, and no formal complaints were made against YPY for posting the posters. So that's where they start, spring 2008. Summer 2008, Youth Protecting Youth applied for and was granted club status and funding. So as of summer 2008 going into fall, they were a club recognized by the UVSS. Fall 2008, at the first club's council meeting on September 23rd, 2008, it was brought up that YPI was not eligible for funding because it was against abortion. I'm sure that wasn't the full argument, but that's what they are stating here. Therefore, didn't fit the UVSS policy. Basically, the club council voted to deny funding to YPY. So each club that UVSS has gets a baseline amount of funding for the year. YPY appealed this decision at the following board meeting, which was on October 6th, still of 2008, where there was an argument, and still they weren't granted anything. It follows to say that for the rest of 2008, they were brought to a bunch of other clubs council meetings, or they showed up to a bunch of other clubs council meetings, and said that they were fabricated complaints, that they weren't real, nobody had made those complaints, that they were all made up. And basically that the UVSS director let the fabricated complaints come through. So in November 2008, they did another poster campaign. I don't know what these posters were. I believe that they are the Feminists for Life posters, which you can look up on the internet. Spring 2009, the club's council voted to fund YPY. Again, in February 2009, the club's council voted on whether or not to give YPY funding. They were not given notice of this meeting. And very long story short, it looks like they were not given funding. 2009, they were actually approved status for funding, but on October 5th, they were rejected. That funding. Basically, spring 2010, more meetings, still they weren't granted status. So I feel 2008 to 2010 was basically a fight for them to get recognition and funding as a real club, which didn't happen, or did happen and then was revoked. That is their breakdown, and on their website you can go through and they have a bunch of posts. They do articles and that sort of thing about the events that they host. So February 17th, first post on the website. February 23rd, they're already discussing their fight with the UVSS. This is all 2010. On March 2nd, 2010, they gained support from the BCCLA. So the BCCLA is the British Columbia Civil Liberties Association. They put out this huge statement talking about how the YPY was basically being silenced and that their freedom of speech was not being accessed. I'll read a little segment from here. The students will be protesting the fact that club funding has been withheld from them for 4 semesters in the past 2 years. This semester, after heated discussion, a motion was passed to deny them club status. The club attempted to call a special general meeting of university students to appeal this decision, but the request was denied by the UVic Student Society Board of Directors, which is the UVSS. This semester, YPY once again put up posters from an organization called Feminists for Life. These posters have sparked controversy in the past and have led to YPY's current denial of status and funding. The club, however, maintains that while the posters may have been controversial, they did not constitute harassment, as has been alleged. Thus, they do not merit the removal of club status and funding. On March 30th, 2010, they offer flowers as affirmation of dignity for women. Can't have your rights, but you can have a flower. So there's that. Again, April 20th, there is the first mention of their also fight against assisted suicide. April 2010, they received club status with terms. May 3rd, 2010, they file with the BC Supreme Court against UVSS. July 19th, the case has now been settled in court. The UVSS has recognized YPY as a club, granted it funding for the summer semester, repaid all funds wrongly withheld since fall 2008, and eliminated policy additions that targeted pro-life advocacy. On October 26, 2010, they hold an event called Echoes of the Holocaust that compares abortion to genocide. This talk was given by Jojo Roba, who is an executive director at Faith Beyond Belief. This sparked a lot of controversy on campus, as you can imagine. January 2011 is their next post where they introduce the acronym SLED. So SLED stands for Size, Level of Development, Environment, and Degree of Dependency. They believe that breaking this down will bring people to the conclusion that abortion is wrong. Under size, they quote, "A person is a person no matter how small." They quote Dr. Seuss. That's their argument. Okay. November 16th, 2011, they have their first choice chain. So themselves on their website, they do talk about this choice chain, but they don't exactly state what a choice chain is. So I had to look at the Winnipeg Against Abortion's website where I was able to find exactly what a choice chain is. So I will read directly from their website. A choice chain is a pro-life demonstration that expresses the injustice of abortion. It can be done by pro-life organizations or by a group of individuals. It involves people standing on public sidewalks, primarily holding 3 by 4 foot signs of first trimester aborted babies. Unfortunately, when I looked this up, I did come across pictures of these signs that they hold, and I would highly recommend that you don't look that up. It is very disturbing. I don't know, because I wasn't at the school at the time, if these were the signs that the YPY held up, if this was the nature of them. I cannot fathom walking by that at school or at all. Seeing that was extremely disturbing, and I hope that that wasn't what they were holding, but I don't know. They didn't post what signs they held during their choice chain on their website. The YPY, however, did make a comment on November 16th about their choice chain. This is a direct quote from it. "Why are we standing outside of these images that we know are disturbing to look at? Ultimately, because we care about you. We care enough to tell you the truth, even though this truth is one that's easier to ignore." There was a press release on February 7th, 2012, saying the University of Victoria Student Society Board of Directors passed 2 motions to publicly censor the pro-life club on campus. They were denied their ability to book public space on campus for events like the choice chain or any similar event. After they were denied that, they don't post anything, any events. They don't talk about doing anything for a whole other year when they tried to host another choice chain, and this is denied. I guess it's been almost a full year. I think they tried to book it on the 1st, and on the 7th or on the 6th they were denied. So they would have needed to book 10 days in advance, as you do as a club, and they didn't. So that is why they were denied the choice chain. There's another press release. On September 26, 2013, Cam Cote, representative and past president of the pro-life club at UVic, filed a constitutional lawsuit against the University of Victoria in BC's Supreme Court. The lawsuit seeks to restore YPY's freedom of speech and expression on campus. On October of 2013, so same time, the Martlet puts out an article, and part of it reads, "This argument was dismissed by the BC Supreme Court and the BC Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court of Canada due to the fact that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms does not apply to UVic's regulation of its outdoor space." So that lawsuit was just dismissed. Then the next post coming from the website doesn't happen until September 3rd of 2014. So it's almost a full year past that, where it's reported, another press release, that 2 women rushed to a pro-life club table at the University of Victoria, snatching the fetal models on display and dumping used cat litter all over the table. This is when Youth Protecting Youth was participating in Clubs Day. So after that, the UVSS had to make a statement offering counseling services to those affected by that event of the club, and basically said that they hope that there's no repetition of that. November 14th of 2014, where they host a debate on abortion. That kind of concludes their timeline I was able to find on their website. They post between 2014 and now. There is some articles like A Hard Truth or Pro-Life is Pro-Woman, articles like that. There's one article in 2016 and there's 2 articles in 2017. Their latest post is titled Pro-Life is for All Life, and that basically sums up the work they've been putting out on their website. So it kind of came out of nowhere yesterday that they, November 16th, 2017, put out 1 flag for each 10 abortions in Canada every year. So I believe it was 100,000 flags, or they were supposed to represent 100,000, as reported by the Martlet. President Cecilia Philippone, I have no idea how to say her last name, I'm going to butcher it, Philippone, denied to comment on the events. So I have one of the pamphlets here. It reads at the top, Canada needs an international standards abortion law. On the back, they have a few examples of international laws, one from France, one from Spain, and one from Germany. And this pamphlet comes from weneedalaw.ca. So I went onto weneedalaw.ca and tried to kind of figure out what exactly they were trying to do, what exact kind of law they wanted. First things first, it's pretty obvious that they're using out-of-date information. I did a quick search in their sources where they were not using the most up-to-date information. Whether they know that or not, I don't know, but with a quick Google search, you can find that out yourself. They are quoting here French, Spain, and German laws of abortion. So what it reads here for France is, France has an abortion law which protects preborn humans after 12 weeks gestation. The only exceptions are if the pregnancy poses a grave danger to the woman's health, or there is a strong probability that the expected child will suffer from a particular severe illness recognized as incurable. So I looked up the French laws, and these are the grounds on which an abortion is granted: to save the life of a woman, to preserve physical health, to preserve mental health, rape or incest, impairment of the fetus, economic or social reasons, and request. So they do have have a law, yes, there is the 12 weeks. I can give them that. As of their German statement, they say Germany allows abortions on request until 12 weeks provided the woman receives proper counseling 3 days before the procedure. The state-regulated counseling is requested to inform the woman that the preborn have a right to live and try to convince her to continue her pregnancy. This is an outright lie. I didn't find anywhere that it says that the counseling is to convince them of anything. That is absolutely not what the counseling is for. It's to make sure that they know all of their options. That's it. This is a lie. This is kind of twisting the truth a little bit, long story short. So, in Canada, if you don't know, it's up to 20 weeks. You can have an abortion. It's regulated by the same legislation as other medical procedures. It's reported that 50% of abortions are done in hospitals and 50% are done in clinics. As response to the event held yesterday, UVic hasn't really made a statement on it. There was a short Twitter conversation where someone was saying, "This is absolutely ridiculous, I am disturbed, I need to go home," and they offered a counseling appointment and left their link to resources on campus and their safe walk. UVSS did approve the outdoor space booking. So we know that they were approved for the space to hold that event, but other than that, there has been no replies yet. I would now like to give my 2 cents on the events of yesterday. Personally, I believe there is a time and a place for protest, and at the university in the middle of campus was not the time or the place. The YPY has said themselves that the reason why they choose to do these protests at UVic is because that is the group of people that are most affected by abortion. I know there's a lot of joking around in social media and stuff like that about the word triggering. Everyone's triggered by everything, apparently. But if you were someone who has been personally affected by abortion, or even if you haven't, seeing that in that space that you are there to learn, you are there to be educated, you are there to feel safe and protected, that can be triggering. It's pretty blatantly obvious. And yes, they are fighting for their freedom of speech. I'm all for freedom of speech. I'm using it right now. But don't be an asshole. It's that simple. Your common knowledge as a good human being, you should know that this is not okay. That you can't do that. You shouldn't, not you can't, but you shouldn't. That in the middle of a university center is not the place to be protesting, because you're not just protesting abortion, you're protesting women's rights, because abortion is a women's rights issue. You're going to the group that is specifically sensitive about the topic and throwing it in their face, and that's not okay. That's really, really not okay. I'm not the only one that felt upset by it or affected by it. And at that point, what is your club really doing? If you were trying to raise awareness, do what the other clubs do. Offer free food at your meetings. Don't set up protests that set out to bother other people. I don't think that is what clubs should be about. So, everyone can take what they want from this. Everyone sees things differently, but this is not 100% truthful. And their protest was not the right time, not the right place. Absolutely not. I think there should be some sort of consequence for these actions. If you're mad, stay mad about this. Don't sit back and just, oh, it just happened. Don't Don't let that happen. If you're mad, if you're upset, if this hurt you, fight against it. Because right now, the ball is in the University of Victoria's court. And we need to wait and see what they can do. And if we just let this pass by, they don't have to do anything. But if you don't want this to happen again, we need to stand up a little bit. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know at this point, with all of the legal battles, all that's been going on so far between the YPY and UVSS, I don't know how we go about that. But if anyone has any ideas, please let me know, because I don't think this is the kind of club we should have on campus. This club has done nothing but hurt and nothing but fight unrightfully. I don't know what good they're really doing. So, University of Victoria, UVSS, the ball is in your court. And I think at this point you can decide whether you want to stand with your students or disappoint them again. And I really hope that you make the right choice.